wind howled through the skeletal trees of Port Chatham, Alaska, on the evening of September 17th, 2021, as the last light of day bled into the horizon. The tiny abandoned settlement of Portlock clung to the edge of the Kenai Peninsula, a forgotten speck swallowed by the wild. Once a bustling cannery town in the early 20th century, it had been deserted since the 1950s, its residents fleeing tales of a monstrous presence known as Nantinaq, a name whispered by the local Alutiiq people, meaning the one who takes. For decades, the stories lingered, a hulking, hairy figure blamed for vanishings, mutilated bodies, and an unshakable dread that drove a community to abandon their homes. On this night, that legend would claw its way back into the present. Nick Hawley, a 34-year-old fisherman from Seward, stood on the rocky shore, his breath fogging in the crisp air. Beside him was his cousin, Travis Monroe, 29, a wiry man with a restless energy. The two had come to Portlock not for fish, but for adventure, a weekend hunting trip in a place few dare to tread. Their boat, a weathered 18-foot skiff, bobbed gently in the shallows, tethered to a rusted cleat half buried in the gravel. The plan was simple. Set up camp, hunt deer in the dense forest, and be gone by Sunday. They carried rifles, Nick with a .30-06 Springfield, Travis with a .308 Winchester, along with a tent, a cooler of food, and a handheld radio. Neither man believed the old tales. To them, Portlock was just a ghost town, its mysteries nothing more than campfire fodder. The forest loomed ahead, a wall of spruce and hemlock draped in shadow. As they hauled their gear inland, the silence pressed against them, thick and unnatural. No bird sang. No small creatures rustled in the underbrush. Only the wind dared to speak, its mournful wail threading through the branches. They pitched their tent in a small clearing about a quarter-mile from the shore, near the crumbling remains of an old cabin. The structure's roof had caved in years ago, its walls gnawed by moss and time. Nick lit a fire while Travis scanned the tree-line, his rifle slung over his shoulder. The flames crackled to life, casting flickering shadows that danced across the ruins. Night fell fast, a heavy curtain of darkness that seemed to smother the world. It was just past 10 p.m. when the first sound came. A low, guttural grunt, deep and resonant, rolled out of the forest. Nick froze, a stick halfway to the fire, his eyes darting to Travis. "You hear that?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the wind. Travis nodded, his hand tightening on his rifle. The grunt came again, closer this time, a sound that vibrated in their chests like the rumble of a distant storm. They stood, weapons raised, peering into the blackness beyond the firelight. The air grew colder, sharper, as if the night itself held its breath. Then they saw it. A shape emerged from the trees, towering and indistinct, at least 50 yards away. It stood upright, its silhouette massive against the faint glow of the moon filtering through the canopy. Nick's flashlight beam stabbed into the dark, catching a glimpse of matted, dark hair or fur, covering a broad, sloping frame. The creature's head turned, and for a fleeting second, the light reflected off two pale, unblinking eyes. They weren't human. They weren't animal. They were something else entirely, cold, piercing, and wrong. Travis let out a shaky breath, his finger hovering near the trigger. "What the hell is that?" he hissed. The thing didn't move. It just stood there, watching them, a sentinel of the wild. The fire popped, sending a shower of sparks skyward, and in that moment, the creature shifted. Its head tilted in a low, keening moan escaped it, a sound that clawed at their nerves, primal and desolate. Nick's stomach twisted. He'd heard bears before, hunted them even, but this was no bear. Bears didn't stand like that, didn't stare with such unnerving stillness. The air grew heavy with a musky stench, sharp and rancid, like wet earth in decay. "Shoot it," Nick muttered, his voice trembling. Travis raised his rifle. The barrel steadied despite the tremor in his hands. But before he could fire, the creature took a step forward, its bulk parting the undergrowth with a slow, deliberate crunch. Then another step, and another. Each movement was measured, unhurried, as if it knew they were trapped in its gaze. The firelight wavered, casting wild shadows that made the thing seem larger, more monstrous. It stopped again, now maybe 30 yards away, close enough for them to see the faint outline of its arms, long, thick, dangling at its sides. Panic surged through them. Travis fired. A single shot that cracked through the night, the muzzle flash briefly illuminating the clearing. The bullet struck a tree trunk just left of the creature, splintering bark into the air. The thing didn't flinch. It didn't run. Instead, it let out a roar, a deafening, guttural bellow that shook the ground and drowned out the wind. Nick stumbled back, his ears ringing, his rifle slipping in his sweat-slick hands. Travis fired again, and this time the creature turned. Not away, but sideways, vanishing into the trees with a speed that defied its size. The branches snapped and swayed in its wake, then fell still. For a moment, neither man moved. The forest swallowed the sound, leaving only the hiss of the fire and their ragged breathing. "We're leaving," Nick said finally, his voice hoarse. Travis didn't argue. They grabbed what they could, rifles, the radio, a single backpack, and abandoned the rest. The tent, the cooler, the fire, they left it all behind, racing back toward the shore. The path seemed longer in the dark, every shadow a threat, every rustle a sign it was coming back. The stench lingered in their nostrils, a reminder of what they'd seen. When they reached the boat, Nick fumbled with the rope while Travis kept watch, his rifle trained on the tree lean. The engine sputtered to life, and they tore away from Portlock, the skiff slicing through the black water of Port Chatham Bay. It was 11:14 p.m. when they radioed the Coast Guard from the boat, their voices overlapping in a frantic plea for help. "We saw something," Nick said, struggling to keep his tone steady. "Something big. It's out there. We're not going back." The Coast Guard logged the call at 11:16 p.m., dispatching a vessel from Seward to meet them. By 1:30 a.m. on September 18th, 2021, Nick and Travis were aboard the cutter, wrapped in blankets, their faces pale and drawn. They gave their statement to the officers. A creature 8 to 10 feet tall, covered in dark hair, with glowing eyes and a roar that shook the earth. The Coast Guard searched the area the next day, but found nothing. No tracks, no hair, no sign beyond the abandoned campsite. The tent was untouched. The fire burned down to embers. The cooler still stocked with food. Local authorities interviewed the men separately in Seward. Nick described the eyes, pale, reflective, like they could see right through you. Travis fixated on the smell, that overpowering reek of rot and musk. Both insisted it wasn't a bear, wasn't anything they'd ever seen. The story spread quickly through Alaska's tight-knit coastal communities, reigniting talk of Nantinaq. The Alutiiq elders nodded knowingly. They'd heard it before. The creature had been sighted sporadically since the 1700s, blamed for the abandonment of Portlock in 1950 after a string of unexplained deaths and disappearances. On September 20th, 2021, a small team of volunteers, local hunters, and a biologist from Anchorage returned to the site. They found the clearing as the men had left it, but the forest yielded no further clues. The biologist, Dr. Karen Ellis, noted that the area's dense vegetation and frequent rain could easily erase evidence. She didn't dismiss the sighting, but suggested a misidentified bear, perhaps a large grizzly, standing upright. The hunters weren't convinced. They knew bears. This, they said, was different. Nick and Travis never returned to Portlock. Nick sold his boat a month later, swearing off the wilderness. Travis kept his rifle close, sleeping with it beside his bed. The encounter left them marked. Their voices hushed when they spoke of it, as if the thing might hear them still. In Port Chatham, the wind still howls, the trees still sway, and the shadow of Nantinaq lingers, a question unanswered, a presence unseen, waiting in the dark.